Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to be on my feet again. It seems to be happening quite a lot as a representative from Alberta to have to protect the interests of the people of my province from the transgressions of this current Liberal government, and I'd be happy to split my time with the honourable member for Durham, giving me about 10 minutes to go on with this. But I'm not going to take the normal tack that has been taken with some of my colleagues here today. I was a member of the Natural Resources Committee for a number of years in the last Parliament. Very proud to talk about these issues as they pertain to my province. But one of the most interesting witnesses we ever had in front of the Natural Resources Committee was a professor. His name was Pierre Desrochers. He's from the University of Toronto, and he came with quite an unorthodox deck that he gave to us at that particular meeting, and actually gave us a very historical but very appreciative, informative historical recap of the value that fossil fuels have played in the Earth's development. Now, just imagine going back a couple of hundred years, what life must have been like. We don't talk about these things here, but the average lifespan for somebody in the 1800s was about 30 years of age. The average size of a human being in that particular point in time around the Earth was about, average man was about 5.5 feet tall, about 145 pounds. We often died from things like disease and, working so hard, subsistence living. There was no quality of life other than just basically working from sun up till sundown to provide for the necessities of life. We didn't have advanced scholars. We didn't have advanced medical facilities. We didn't have teachers and doctors. We didn't have any of these kinds of professions because we were basically just eking out a living. Now, what did that do to our environment? Because the opposition, or the Liberals over here, sorry, are opposed to these pipelines because they're claiming that this is bad for the environment. So what was it like for the environment when people were living subsistence living? People would basically try to grow food or earn a living off of every square inch of the Earth's surface that they could. That meant all sorts of marginal land along the edges of cliffs, along lake shores, along the edges of the ocean, would all be used to try and grow food. Or forests would be cut down. Vast tracts of forest were cut down to burn wood or these kinds of resources for fuel, for cooking, for heating, and for whatever else was necessary at that particular point in time. Now, if you go back and actually take a look, and he gave us some maps, Mr. Speaker, of what these things actually looked like. Did you know that there was less forest in 1920 in the United States than there is today? Actually, because of the advancement of fossil fuels and the use of fossil fuels for things like transportation, for things like heating, we live a much cleaner, much healthier, much more environmentally sustainable life than we could have ever imagined. We live now well into our 80s. Our size, our nourishment, the amount of technology from fossil fuels, whether it's the fuel that goes into the inputs of agriculture, not just the inputs of driving the tractor or whatever the case might be, but actual inputs right into things like the creation of fertilizer that we can apply on our crops to grow far more food than we ever had. But that's not the biggest thing. The biggest thing is the advancements in transportation, Mr. Desrochers said. You used to be able to only eat food that you could grow within your local community. Now, while that sounds like a romantic idea, and there's lots of people pushing that agenda from all corners of this House at certain times, the reality is, if we have a bad crop here, if you had a bad year on your farm when you were having a subsistence living, you were in danger of dying. And this isn't all that long ago. Imagine what it was like 200 years ago to move a ton of grain 50 kilometers when all you had was a couple of horses. Imagine how much grain you would have to go to feed that horse just to move that grain. Did you know that in the late 1898s, late 1800s, 1898 I believe it was, in New York City, a bunch of regional municipal planners got together for their first ever meeting. What their issue was of the day? It wasn't about whether they're going to build sewer lines or pipelines or water lines or anything like that. Their issue of the day was what they were going to do with horse manure. Because that was their transportation mode. Now enter fossil fuels. We have coal now that we can burn in ships. We're not relying on the trade winds or sailing ships to trade. We can move food anywhere we want in the world, any time that we want. So when one region of the world has a drought, another region of the world has tremendous crop successes. We see this now. We take it for granted. We've forgotten how this actually happened, right? So now we can transfer food from Australia to Southeast Asia. We can transfer food from North America into China. We can transfer food from Africa into Europe, or from Europe into Africa, for that matter, in the form of aid. Where would we be if we, where would the planet be right now if we couldn't actually airlift or move quickly food whether by ship or by cargo planes or whatever the case might be, with the technological advances, by the way, of the petrochemical industry. I don't know if anybody's been in the cockpit of an airplane lately, but it isn't made out of wood. Where would we be without the advancements in fossil fuels? These are the things that we have so much taken for granted and forgotten as we have these debates about what is a social license. Well, a social license, I don't know where I can go apply for. I know where I can go apply for my driver's license. I know where I can go apply for my fishing license. If I'm lucky, I might even be able to go on my marriage license. But I don't know anywhere we can go apply for a social license. This is just a manufactured term trying to create an agenda on one side of the issue to stop something that makes complete sense. Stop an industry and stop things that improve our quality of life. God forbid that we didn't have fossil fuels in our lives. Where would we be? What would we be able to do? Nothing. There wouldn't be politicians in this room debating it because we'd be out scratching a living off of rocks. Right? I don't know of any other fuel or any other technology right now that allows us to do long-range transportation. Is there anything else that we can put in an airplane to make it fly? Are you going to put a battery-operated commercial airline in the air and get on it and go over the Pacific? I'm not doing that. I'm pretty happy with that airplane burning carbon fuels to get me across the ocean. And that's absolutely fantastic. That's a modern advancement. Did you know that the air quality in Toronto 100 years ago was worse than the air quality in Beijing is today? Most Canadians don't know that. It's true. Because what were they burning 100 years ago to heat their homes in Toronto? You know, some of the dirtier carbon of the day. They were burning wood, they were burning coal. These are the things, as we've advanced through our society, burning garbage, burning whatever waste they could. These are the things that we've advanced from over time. And right now China's going through the same thing. This is just industrial revolution all over again. It's just happening at different times in different countries around the world. China will advance. Certain countries are so advanced over Canada. Here we are, Canada, one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world. And other countries that are just coming out of third world status or still in third world status have better communication systems than we do because they got to skip the whole part where we dug our lines and buried them in the ground. They went right to radio telecommunications, satellite communications in their country on cell phones not made out of wood. Now, I got nothing against wood. I got nothing against our other natural resources. In fact,
pro-forestry too.
I even prefer wooden hockey sticks. But that's a different issue altogether.
Yeah,
My point being, fossil fuels have done more to make us wealthier and healthier. The wealthier we are, the healthier we are. Take a look at a country where somebody is living under the poverty line, where their per capita GDP is less than $5,000 per year. Are those people living as long as we are? Are they as healthy as we are? Can they afford the same quality of food that we can afford? Absolutely not. The fossil fuel sector creates wealth. Wealth creates health. Not only do we live longer because we can have better food and all the other kinds of things that go along with that, but we have freed up a massive amount of our population to move to our cities, to move to our urban areas, to pursue educations, to study, to create a powerful center of innovation and technology so that we can have advancements. We can solve our problems with technological improvements. We don't need to politicize something that is so uncontroversial. Saying you want to go through your day without a fossil fuel is like saying, well, I can get by without eating bread. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't do it. You would never say that. Why would you say you can get through your day without, using a little bit of carbon, using some fossil fuels from time to time? Do you know who was the happiest about the advancement of fossil fuels? The whales. Let me explain. Prior to the invention or the refinement of kerosene, what was the major source of oil in the world? Whale oil. And I'm listening to the guys here in the Liberal Party blubber on and on and on about these environmental issues when the advancements of the fossil fuel industry actually probably saved the whales on the planet. So thank you, Shell. Thank you, Nexon. Thank you, all these companies, for the great environmental work that you do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.